Robert Zinni here at Random Art Studios in Prescott, Arizona for a special 5enses podcast. I'm sitting down in studio with Allison Kantor, the owner of Random Art Studios and the director of Fourth Fridays here in Prescott. Today we'll be talking about her life as an artist, her life as a nurse, and how this pandemic is really impacting the arts community in Prescott. Allison, thank you for agreeing to let us come in and interview you. So, Random Art Studios, where did the concept come from? And if you can talk to us about like your life as an artist, that'd be great.
That would be the reason that it's called Random.
Yeah, okay.
My life's been random, and I've been painting since probably any time I can remember. I didn't have the confidence to put it out in public and try and sell my work that I needed. So upon the suggestion of a friend of mine, I got my degree. I wound up teaching art then down in Phoenix at Collins College for about 4 years. I teach here, but only one-on-one. It's private only, unless it's maybe a mother-daughter. Occasionally I've done that. I do direction. I wouldn't call it teaching. I call it intervention with people who are doing a painting party, just so no one leaves unhappy or is frustrated, because that's not the idea. It's supposed to be fun and a release. So the history, I guess, was starting from being grounded nearly all of my high school life, and truthfully, and I painted in my room because I was forbidden from using the phone or watching television or doing anything. So, and I wasn't a bad kid, it's just that I had a strict dad, and so I spent a lot of time alone, and I painted a lot, and I wrote poetry a lot. And a lot of my paintings they're plays on words, kind of. I like to mess with the words and sayings. An artist friend of mine once said I paint cliches, which sort of I do. I didn't know if I was insulted at first. And I think you can see the nursing coming through too. It's because it's all about people, just like the nursing is, and the reality. Like people are not all beautiful and perfect. And so, yeah, there's some wrinkles and there's some, heavier people and thinner people and funny people. I always just sum up my bios, which I hate writing in the first place. I just say it's humanity with a sense of humor. And there is also some nature human mix, like rocks that look like people and, basically always people though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we look around your studio, you don't discriminate with the way that your characters look, whether it's the Potheads or the paintings over here. So it really gives that abstraction, but also character to the humans.
It has to be characters, and people have their own character and personality, and then I think that just filters out when I'm working.
Where does your inspiration come from when it comes to your commissions or the images in the rocks to the amazing paintings behind us?
They come from people.
People?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have like conversations with them? How do you get into the mind frame of the people, or how do you get that
I
abstraction?
don't know exactly.
You don't know? Okay.
I'm writing all the time on little pieces of paper all over the house, all over my car. I used to write on the dashboard, but my husband put a stop to that. So something will spark something, and I write it down. And if I'm still thinking about it about 3 weeks later or maybe a month later, that means I should paint it.
Okay.
So that I really don't know where it comes from.
Okay. One of my favorite things I've noticed in your studio is your little Potheads.
Yes.
So where did you come up with that concept? Because I will definitely buy one for my mother for her garden.
I do portrait Potheads and I do pet Potheads. Those are a little different. The characters that I do just out of my head started with doing more three-dimensional people, mixed media sculptures, I'd like to call them, or art dolls, some people call them. And then when we were building this studio, we were living in a very small environment, my husband and I. He's a drummer, a photographer, I'm a painter, and we're in an 8x8 room. So I couldn't do the whole person, I couldn't sew their clothing, I couldn't do the big paintings either. And I just did the heads, the idea being later I would do the whole person. And I was sticking them in plants so they'd get protected.
Okay.
And there was a question about what is that in that plant? And I just said, it's a pothead, I guess. It's in a pot. So it became Potheads. And then I have had it copyrighted. It's official through the Library of Congress. I mostly did it as a joke. I thought for sure they're going to put this one in file 13. And it did take a couple of years, but I filled out all the paperwork, sent in the fees, and sure enough, a couple of years later, I get an email saying I forgot to do something on page, 24. And when I did, they sent me my copyright. So I now have the copyrighted Prescott Potheads. So I can honestly say I'm the original Prescott Pothead, and I know people come here expecting something quite different than what they get.
Right.
But they can come here and have a nice glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and they can look at the art that comes out of a pothead.
Figuratively, right?
Figuratively, yes.
Okay.
Those days are over. That was the 60s, guys,
I understand you went to Woodstock as well.
Yes.
So how was going to Woodstock as a 20-year-old back in the day?
Well, it was just a barrel of laughs. There were mind-altering substances that were part of that experience. Again, those are way behind me now, but I can't say that they don't feed into your question about where do I get my inspiration. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Been painting ever since then. Back then, it was more painting on leather garments, and I designed incense packaging. I was part of a company called Benze Trading Company, and they were sort of head shop suppliers. We did a lot of art involved with that. I drew the entire catalog for that company.
Cool.
So that's sort of where it was coming at. And silkscreen t-shirts, we were one of the first to do those. I lived in a world of incense and myrrh and whatever, parsley, sage, rosemary, thyme, all that stuff.
What is your favorite medium to work with? Because we see a lot in the studio. You have your potheads over there, even your marionette dolls, to your... Are they oil paintings or are they oil paintings? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is your favorite medium?
Something that doesn't fight with me.
Okay.
I've tried other mediums. I am not a person who wants to sculpt with something hard that I have to chisel, which is my definition of fighting with me. So if it's soft and pliable, and recently I tried to do an air dry clay. I hate it. I won't use that. So I've taught all mediums. I just prefer oil and clay.
Okay.
Those two they're soft. They work with me. Like stained glass, I'm appreciative of. I'll buy it. I buy metal art because I love it and I know I should not be trusted with a blowtorch in my hands. So I buy a lot of art from other artists that do mediums that I don't do. Or that I can't do. I tried batik, I'm terrible at it. You gotta know your limits. So I go back and forth between the sculpting, the potheads are on one end of the studio, the light is perfect on the other end for painting.
Okay.
So today, for instance, I will paint for probably 3-4 hours, and then I need to let that oil dry and rest. Then I'll go over and do the sculpting with the clay.
Okay. Who's your favorite artist?
Wow.
I know, tough question.
That's a tough one. I think if I could put Peter Max and Norman Rockwell in a jar and mix them up, I would, because I like the people aspect, but I don't want it to be quite as, I don't want to say stuffy, but Norman Rockwell, it's more traditional, let's say. Peter Max took it out there and did more, psychedelic kind of work. I like Maxwell Parrish a lot as well because of the lighting. So I think I've drawn from his work. I like Picasso in his early days, not so much later on. Mm-hmm. There's a little surrealism that creeps into my stuff, so Dali could be in there too, a little mix.
Oh, I can see that. And
it's a blender.
Right. I feel like in the rock and the nature art pieces, I see a little bit more surrealism.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and all these people in jars there, that's fairly surrealistic too. But it's got that element of realism because it's realistic painting of a whole bunch of naked people in jars. It crosses over. Yeah, they're preserved. That comes from a saying. That's like you're saying, what am I inspired by? A lot of times it's words. That one is from people saying, she's so well preserved, meaning that you still look good for your age, I guess. But I think it's a weird thing to say, and that's what inspired that.
Awesome.
So that one's called Well Preserved.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So we're here at Random Art Studios, and you were talking about art parties. So what is an art party? And if I wanted to have a group of friends or have a nice intimate date with somebody,
Yes.
what does that entail?
Well, currently, it's a little different picture because I have to limit the number of guests, but I actually favor less than 10 anyway.
Okay.
Because for me to have enough time to get to everyone and to help them out individually, if I get too many more than that, it's too confusing. One thing I do differently than other places that I've seen that do art painting parties, sipping in, whatever they call them. Here, no, we don't all paint the same thing. I don't stand up and say, we're all gonna paint 4 tomatoes and show you how to paint 4 tomatoes. For one thing, I think it lends itself to, it's stifling the creativity of the person. It's not letting them explore what they might be capable of that they aren't even aware of until they start doing this. I like them to pick their subject. I'll guide them, if they say I want to do a portrait of my grandchild and they've never painted, I might suggest that we don't start there. But otherwise, they get to pick their subject, and if they want to do contemporary, we can go that route. We can go into oil or acrylic. The person who comes generally brings with them their friends or their family. I have one family in town who repeatedly come, and they bring the whole family, like 3 generations. And they've been in here 3 times, and they have another one planned that they gave as a Christmas gift to someone. So they do a family thing. Otherwise, like today I have a birthday party going on. It doesn't have to be an occasion. It can be right now, just art therapy. I need to get out of this house before I kill my spouse because I've been indoors with them all this time. It's a good release, and I offer it for 4 hours. You get a 4-hour block of time. The cost, I think, is minimal for what you're getting. You get a canvas, the setup, some instruction, all the paints, and 4 hours of time for $30.
That's not bad at all.
And then if someone doesn't want to bring their own snacks, I say, bring finger foods, whatever you want, some beverages of your choice. If they don't want to do it, I'll do it, but that ups the price, obviously. So if I'm providing wine and beer and iced tea and hors d'oeuvres, then it's $45 a person. And I have some people that would prefer to do that. They just walk in, I put a smock on them, but I now take their temperature and they use their hand sanitizer and they have gloves, and also I'm feeding them some immuno chewies from Target that are their echinacea zinc and stuff, just to be extra helpful.
So Allison, you are the director of Prescott's 4th Friday. And with everything that's happening right now, what decisions have you had to make in the art community?
It's been tough because I think artists by nature are fairly optimistic, unless they're really, really depressed and they paint that real dark stuff with blood coming out their eyeballs or something. But most of the artists that I hang out with, and myself included, are optimists. So we optimistically wanted to have an art walk, in April. It's looking very sketchy for that. So it's a day-by-day thing, just like everybody else. We don't know.
I just want to say thank you as a community member for taking the precautions to cancel 4th Friday.
I know, it's so hard.
We don't know what's going on, so...
I had mixed reviews when I sent out an email to everyone that does the art walk and said, what do you think? And, there were a couple of people that said, I think we still need to do stuff. Well, it's more serious than that. And so I think everybody finally came to the consensus that we just have to hold off.
No, that's very smart.
Yeah.
And so besides canceling 4th Friday, how has this pandemic impacted the arts community in general? Have you noticed anything different? Are people closing down their
Yeah,
studios?
I think it's going to be devastating, to
Okay.
be honest. Yeah, I know for me, I'm lucky because I have this space and I can do a little something. But if people are depending on customers, I mean, I don't know how many people you've seen out. There's some activity in our town, but it's got to be. And the thing is, when the economy goes down, the stock market, et cetera, I can tell you from experience, from a few episodes in my lifetime, that's hard on the arts. It's a luxury, so I provide a service, which is cool, but if you don't have that, it is a luxury, and some people will benefit from this episode, but most people won't. And so the casual art visitor who might buy a little piece or a gift or something might not be doing that under these circumstances. For us, for my husband and I said to him today, I don't know why I can't keep track of the days, because this is our life. We work from home. And so I said, what is it that's making me forget that today's Saturday? He said, well, because we usually go out, we do more stuff. And we go, oh, on Wednesday I'm doing this, and on Thursday I'm doing that. So you kind of get the days in your head, but the days are like, they're all blending into one.
Right.
Yeah.
That must be difficult for you to have this lifestyle, and then you throw this pandemic in this mix, and then you're kind
For us,
of aloof with all the timing.
It's
right?
nothing compared with what some people are going through.
That is true.
I think that's part of my nursing thing too. People are like, wow, you did that for 46 years? Yeah, and I was always glad to be the one on this side of the bed, and I don't lose sight of the fact that this person has so much worse of a lot in life that no matter what problem I had before I went into work was left at the door easily, and I see families, I worry about families who have one income.
Right.
And they can't work now, and maybe they can get a job in the grocery store stocking shelves. That's just not gonna do it.
Nope.
If your budget is, set up one way or another, we don't have it bad, my husband and I. We're very lucky people, but there's a lot of people out there that are suffering.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the truth
Yeah.
of the situation. So you were a nurse for 46 years.
46 years, yeah, I'm still a nurse.
You're still a nurse, right? Well, I can tell
I'm
you.
not currently active, but I plan to be. That's also on hold because I wanted to do, I don't ever want to not be nursing. So it wasn't that situation where you work as a waitress until you can be an actress someday. With me, it was never that way. I have two careers. I love them both. The art and the nursing has always been there. I have a degree in both. I love both of them, and I really miss the nursing. But I'm just going to do it a little bit. In nursing, it's called PRN, or as needed.
Right, and from my understanding, you were a nurse in an infectious
Disease for the first 8 years.
Okay.
I was in General Rose Memorial Hospital in Denver, and they had a dedicated wing that was all infectious disease. So I probably erroneously think that I'm immune to everything because I was exposed to everything. But we were definitely trained and used the PPE that was available to us properly. So that probably helps me a little bit.
Okay.
To know when it is appropriate and when it's not,
And when you were a nurse there, what were some of the experiences that you had with your patients? Was their infectious diseases as bad as what's going on today? Do you see any differences
No.
or similarities? No?
In a word, no, because we had treatments for everything that I dealt with. We had IVs or antibiotics that could treat them. The part about it that was really interesting and made me want to be there was that nurses were an integral part of the diagnosis process, because what we got was anything which they called an FUO, or a fever of unknown origin, was sent to us from any part of the country. So if they had somebody in New Hampshire and they just traveled to, I don't know where, Africa, and they came home and they were sick and they couldn't diagnose it or figure out what was going on, we got them. I like that from that interesting standpoint. I think for patients, it was a hard unit to be in if you were young, because you felt like a leper, because we came in all gowned and gloved and, masked. So it was kind of hard on the patient in a way, I think, to be feeling like I'm contagious. No one wants to feel like that, know. So I think that was hard. We did have some reverse isolation too for people who are immunosuppressed. So that was good. You got training in both. It was a really young crew in there. I mean, we had the interns, the residents, and for the same reason, because it was kind of a learning environment. Really, really fun. But I have a different sense of fun than some people. I like wounds. I think they're fun.
Okay.
Other people don't always think that, but they're visual, and maybe that's part of my whole thing is the nursing feeds into the painting, and the visual cutting out of dressings and making things work, and seeing the healing. I'm not into doing like cardiac. I can't see it. I want to see the improvement. So. Maybe that's why I gravitated into the wound care more than anything else.
Okay, that's very, very interesting connection between nursing and art. So
it's not just me. This is not unique. I have met more doctors and nurses who are very artistic. Some of, for one thing, we do have a little edge on anatomy and physiology. So that's, that's part of your training. But there is some crossover between that right and left brain that you don't expect, but happens a lot. I've seen it a lot. I've seen a lot of physicians who are sculptors, and they're really good at it. It's funny the way it crosses.
Right. So with everything going on, Allison, and in times of adversity and challenge, a lot of businesses have to adapt or think of problem-solving ways. So how is this experience going to strengthen your business here at Random Art, but also how's this experience going to transform and hopefully make it stronger for Fourth Friday?
I'll have more product for sure.
Okay.
Because I'm just producing like a mad woman in here, which is sort of my style anyway. Anyone who comes in here can see that I'm sort of bouncing off the walls. But the nature of my work doesn't change much. I'm isolated all the time when I'm working. What I miss is then, sure, I miss the customers and I miss making sales. That's practical, but I miss the congeniality and the group that we could pull in every Fourth Friday, because that's the only time I'm officially open. Is Fourth Friday, other than when people set up, an art party, or they call me, or they say I'm in town with my niece and we want to come. Sure, come on over. I'm in here working all the time by myself. So that hasn't changed. It's just that nobody comes to see me.
Well, I'm excited to see what kind of art you make during your time of isolation, especially if you can't showcase it to the public. Speaking of the public, where can they find information not only for the studio, but for Fourth Friday?
Oh, okay. For my studio, it's randomart.biz is the website. And for the art walk, it's Art the Fourth, I think it is. And there's various ways to approach that. I'm sure online you can put in Fourth Friday, Prescott, boom, it'll all come up, and they can see what's going on and what's resuming and what's not. Nothing right now, but that doesn't mean that the site is down. Definitely not. Patty Ortiz does that. I don't do that. One of the caveats to my becoming the director was I'm not techie. So I used to do, a lot of medical programs, but they're a finite program. They're not me just getting lost in the space. So she does all of that. I couldn't do it without her. And Mary Kay O'Neill is our secretary, and she helps too. And we have a treasurer, Jill Huckabee. She's with Charles Huckabee's gallery over here on Gurley. Mary Kay shows her work, I think, both at TIS and also at Krieger Gallery. We're the four that always come. We're always there. And then we have representatives. I would love to see a representative from every single gallery that participates, but that isn't possible for them apparently. We have some regulars. We have people coming from Mountain Artists Guild. We have 18 participants, 18 galleries, and that's super. And we kept it this year. You never know with what's going on, if people. We only had one person had to drop out because they were just in the infancy of creating their gallery, and the owner just said, look, under the circumstances, they can't do it, which I'm surprised we only had one, to be honest. So I'm waiting now for the final proof of our new brochure, which will have a date in April, which probably won't happen, but it'll have the date on there because our season is April to April. One thing that people don't know in town, I've found almost across the board, they think we aren't open in the winter for art walks. People, oh, you do that even now? Yes, it's year round, folks. And so it'd be nice if the townspeople fill in where the tourists drop off. But, we just have to get people to be aware. We have to tell them. And that's where 5enses comes in, because hopefully they'll read that and say, oh, all year round, That's what we need people to know.
Excellent. Well, Allison, it was a pleasure getting to know you and opening your doors to the studio. If you want to get a painting party, which I'm very excited to do myself, contact her. We'll have information about Random Art Studios in our description. And thank you for tuning in to another 5enses podcast with Robert Zinni. For more information, go to 5ensesmag.com. Like us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find our podcasts anywhere where podcasts are viewable.